to be on the list.
You really do. You got to keep it clean.
More prepared for to show up somewhere else.
So, at my corporation, we have to do this announcement, like, if you do not want to be recorded, please drop off and listen to the recording. This meeting is being recorded. It's a habit. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, with, just again, wanted to thank Mary and Margaret for joining us tonight to talk to us about the power of group learning. In the room, we were just talking about how things are shifting, and I think this is going to be a really robust conversation, and I'm very, very excited for that, for sure. So, I am going to bring up your deck.
Okay.
And then this should work with that, so we'll make sure that we have that.
And that actually may not work with the PowerPoint, maybe with the PDF. Does it work? Can you just click over the PDF?
It should. If it doesn't, then I'll be your lovely assistant, Van White. And all you have to do is hit a slider.
Yeah.
You can just literally look at me by the time we're. Yeah, we can have major amounts of this.
Did anybody else open up? Remember when you did ding? You know.
Ding.
What's the?
Okay, can you see?
In school.
Oh,
Recording.
yes.
So it becomes ding.
It's a film strip.
Film
It's got
strip.
music with it or recording.
Friends on the web, can someone come off mute and say hello?
Hello.
Look at that.
All right.
Okay,
Hello.
my work here this week is done. All right, thank you for being here. Yeah, just kidding. Okay, we are gonna get this party started. Thank you for being here. Let me pull up our slide here. And go ahead and are you?
And what is the best place to stand or sit or?
So here's the thing, realistically, you are on the web and people can see you from that camera right there. If you guys
Okay.
would rather have a fireside chat style where you're literally sitting and just having a discussion, do what's most comfortable.
Okay, but if I turn my back, will they see my back?
Or you could come over here if you were like
Yeah,
If I come over
here
here,
and
will
the
that work?
camera will pick you up.
Okay.
yeah, the camera will pick you up. It's
I
gonna
can
follow your voice.
I'm just gonna sit down and.
I mean, it's a fireside chat.
When I get tired of signals.
Absolutely,
All right.
Exactly.
absolutely.
Well, thank you for having us, Jen.
Thank you.
And again, I'm Margaret Brake with Quantuvos. I'm here with Mary Slaughter. We are very excited about this topic as well because we have been experimenting a lot with group learning a lot with group learning. And so we are here to share a little bit about what our experience has been and kind of dive in, and we want to welcome your questions, and we'll make this certainly a dialogue. So what I'll do is I'm just going to share a little bit about who we are, Quantuvos. People ask us, where on earth did that name come from? It is a Latin word. It means choose to be your best. It's a long story, but it has a connection to Chick-fil-A in terms of how we came up with that name.
What?
Believe
so
it or
cool.
not, one of the executives at Chick-fil-A knows Greg really well. And when we were naming the company, we started Quantuvos a few years ago. When we were naming the company, somehow he knew of that word or had heard about it at a conference or something, and we loved it. So Quantuvos. And you'll see here, we are a coaching organization. We focus on professional development with a sort of coaching at our core. So we do all sorts of coaching. We do, of course, individual one-on-one coaching. We do team coaching. We do group coaching. And we focus on really that level, all of the levels below the executive level who historically have not had access to coaching in the past. You'll see some of our customers here. We work across many different industries, different size companies. But one thing we have learned from the pandemic is that companies are looking for new solutions. They're looking for ways to engage their people, connect their people, help their people grow in hybrid work environments, and group learning has been just a great way to do that. So we're going to share a little bit about what our experience has been with group learning. And welcome, come on in,
James.
I think getting started here. All right, so Mary, this might be where I'm supposed to hand it off to you. Is that right?
That's
Okay.
definitely do that.
All right.
Hi, welcome. By the way, if you want to buy tea, there's this is Margaret. I'm Mary. Welcome. We've been chatting for a while, so you really haven't missed much.
Definitely.
Other than knowing how many gens are in the room.
There's a
It's
serious
more than one.
situation.
Yeah, we're gonna play gen bingo later.
I did not answer that.
You didn't, you're a James, so absolutely.
So group learning is really interesting to us. I've been associated with Quantuvos for about a year. By the way, I'm a lifelong fan of ATD. I've served on the national board before. I still serve on some of their boards committees as well too. So thank you on behalf of the bigger ATD to be here. It's a great organization, super committed to your development as members. So all of you online hearing that as well too. Thank you so much. And the Atlanta chapter is famous for being big and inventive and highly engaged. So Jen, I'm sure you're part of all that engagement as well too. So,
Takes a village.
yes,
for
thank
sure.
you. Yes, for sure. Thank you for what you do. When I first started talking to Quantuvos and Margaret and Greg about who we are, at first I thought it was a coaching firm. And it kind of is and kind of isn't all at the same time. Greg and Margaret started the firm, as he said, during the pandemic. And over the course of the last 3 years, there's been more and more of this sort of pull for group learning with our customers. They're looking for new ways to do talent development. There's a lot of fractures that happened in the world and in the world of work over the last 2 to 3 years. So this second point about relationships and collaboration, we get pulled into so much work that's around culture these days. I don't know if you're experiencing it either with your clients or in your own organizations, that we all sort of went away and then we came back, and it wasn't exactly the same coming back as it was when we all went away. And so there's a lot of reset that's going on in that space. The group learning part certainly works toward culture change, but it also helps to move across silos. You guys know this as learning professionals, but also this last point around the isolation that has happened over the years. And hybrid gets us a little bit back that way, but it's a whole sort of new playing field for the world of learning. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask a very simple question. Can we do a level set on what is the definition of group learning?
That's a good, yeah,
that
I
is-
love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm prepared to give a description of our approach
Yeah.
to group learning, but do you want to
Probably
say
several.
more?
We're gonna cover a little bit more about our approach to group learning. I would, in a broad sense, I would consider group learning to be any time you bring a group together for an experience where they are learning together. Now, that could be training, it could be, many different, forums, but when we describe our approach, we'll share a little bit about what's worked about how we've done that and how it has really hit on a lot of these things.
Yeah, sure. So I'll chime in a couple more points. Some people think of it as cohort based, but it doesn't have to be. It could be you come together for one thing and then you're apart again. But the business drivers are what's interesting to me. This wanting to do things in smaller chunks, wanting to do things faster, wanting to know that things stick, and needing to get alignment across a large group of people pretty quickly. So the plan to roll something out over 18 or 24 months, or perhaps asynchronously, there's all these multiple benefits that our customers are saying to us, can you help us you thought of this army lined up to get everybody kind of moving at the same time. So it's shared micro learning, it's coaching that's been woven in to the learning experience itself. And then there's the exchange of learning that goes on inside of the group itself. So it doesn't necessarily just come from without, it comes from within it as well too. That's what we've been experiencing. Would that be a fair?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of science that goes along with this as well too. So, you know, if we all have our little spaces that we go to that make us happy, this is probably the one that makes me the happiest, is understanding what the social science and to some extent the neuroscience tells us about how people learn and who we are as humans, what makes us tick. So first and foremost, we are biologically wired as a species to be together. And it's probably one of the biggest struggles that we're all seeing post-pandemic is, on one hand, people love the flexibility and the independence that they had. So, white collar workers, not everyone, but that there was a lot of that was learned during the pandemic, and ways to have higher levels of productivity. Yet, it's not good for us to be isolated. Not helpful. And so we want to make sure that we're helping to create communities inside of organizations, but also playing to this need of to be your best, right? So as an individual, if you are constantly operating in isolation, it's not a good thing for you on any level. Positive social pressure. So the reason group learning, one of the reasons it works is when people are together and they know that other people are paying attention, they tend to pay more attention. So, you know, you hear about social loafing in, you know, on not just the internet, but on different social platforms that people will go and they'll look around, but they never really contribute. Yeah. Well, people, when they're together and they know other people are paying attention, it's considered positive pressure to cause us to lean in and engage. It does help with this piece of shared context as well too. So we could all probably learn the same information independently, asynchronously, at home alone, you know, in the dark with a flashlight. That's probably not going to do it though when it comes to alignment in an organization, feeling like there's some common purpose that everybody's heading toward one thing. And so context, we know from the research on change, is that when humans know why something is happening, they're far more likely to do it. And when they don't know why something is happening, they're far more likely to hang on to the status quo. So when you do things in a group context, it not only informs everybody at the same time, but it helps to sort of level set and get everybody going, oh, so that's what you mean. Oh, that means that to you. And so they start to find one another in this alignment. And then lastly, for those of you that pay attention to growth mindset, the ability to experiment, to test out ideas, to learn from others, and to make mistakes, and to learn from those mistakes that you make. And so we try to keep those philosophies, keep those principles baked inside of how we approach group learning with our customers. Did you add anything else, Margaret?
I was just gonna open it up for questions or just
Reactions,
yeah, things that you all have seen in your experience.
So I'm having a visceral reaction to what you said about when people understand why you're doing something, they're more likely to try it and not let go of the status quo.
Right.
I think that there's a lot of companies out there that are doing transformation work and they say, well, we're in a transformation, we're doing this, we're doing that. But what they don't do is give the why, right, to people that are the ones that are going to make the transformation happen. And I think that made a lot of sense because there's science behind it, right?
Right. Well,
You have to give people the why.
Yeah, on that, so one more click down from that, Jen.
Yeah,
So
please.
our brains sort of operate on this continuum of threat and reward. We took that as sort of opposite ends of the spectrum. The unknown, by definition, arcs more toward the threat end of things. And so when you are in a threat state, when your brain's in a threat state, cognition goes down, recall goes down, creativity goes down, willingness to take risk goes down, willingness to change goes down, right? So our brains process the unknown, process ambiguity as more of a threat than, oh, it's an opportunity. No, we don't, that's not how the mechanism works. We might put that in leadership messages that we say to organizations, but our biology says, if I don't know what reality is, I'm going to tend to resist it. So this is such a perfect way we found with our customers to help create context, to help them do whatever change that they're trying to do. And they get to not just hear it from outside people, but they get to validate it with each other, which is probably in the long run more important and create more stickiness.
I love that.
Any other reactions or questions?
I was wondering what you think. I feel like in a group learning situation, you have not only a tighter sense of teamwork, but also accountability.
Yeah.
When you're in a group situation, you feel, it feels a little bit more intense or enhanced, maybe personal, I guess.
I think that's true, and I think what we've seen, we'll talk about our group coaching approach here momentarily, but when we typically put people in smaller cohorts and they're going through a series of group sessions. And there is much more accountability. I mean, when you put something out there and say, you know, I'm gonna work on this, and you know, next time we come back, folks are gonna either ask you about it, or we're gonna all have a chance to go around and talk about what we've applied. Much higher likelihood. And I think the same holds true when you pair people up. We do a lot of peer partners even within the group cohort, where partners have to get together in between sessions and talk through what they're working on or how they process that information, and that drives the accountability even more. So I think that's absolutely true.
Have you ever heard? Oh, okay. No, go ahead. Those of you that have done instructional design work in your lives, the phrase speed, price, quality, pick two. You can't get all three, right? And we've all lived with that dance. Interestingly, I think a lot of what the demand that we're seeing may have emanated from a place of speed and also some, not pricing, but just cost sensitivity in an economy that things still aren't 100% clear. Maybe they never are, but they're still ambiguous as to how the economy is going to continue to move. But interestingly, the quality part has been right up there with the speed and the pricing structure for customers, that they get this sense of, oh my gosh, when we bring people together and have them work collectively, there's this extra bump of performance that they weren't expecting, instead of going individually. Hey, you were gonna ask something. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm curious, from a business perspective, who hires you? Are you in training departments? Are you in HR departments? Are you in?
That is a great question. We are typically, we typically, our entree into organizations is often someone in HR. You know, it could be the head of HR, it could be the head of learning and development, talent development. But in other cases, we work directly with a business unit head. And sometimes we'll start with HR and then it expands to other parts of the organization. And what we found is that HR typically has some budget, but they don't have the budget for, you know, every single learning opportunity that might be available to people out there. And so business unit leaders, particularly those that have a real vision for developing their people and are very committed to it, often they have bigger budgets, you know, to do those kinds of things. But many times the entree is in through HR and the learning side of the house.
I think I heard something recently where it was basically the amount of pain that exists in that organization will dictate where the need is and where they're going to find the funding for it. So your ability to galvanize that and bring in the solution is going to be important.
I'm curious how much of the feels preventative versus everything's on fire and you need to come in and fix it right now.
That's a great
Like, are they getting to, you know, because part of this question about what they're willing to invest does come from the pain, and they usually aren't willing to invest a lot unless there's a lot of pain. And by the time people have gotten to pain, they don't want to make the changes. You know, and it's this weird sort of.
And I'll
No,
go ahead.
another useless pearl of wisdom. There's, what was the phrase? That change happens when the pain of staying the same exceeds the change, the pain of actually changing.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, it's awful, and if we stay this way, it's going to be worse than if we actually changed and made something different happen.
And Kate, your question, I think, is a great lead into this next piece, because we were going to share a little bit about some case studies. And some of these have been more of the, I would say, like, we're on fire and we needed help, but in some cases there is a great deal of pain. And so they're using a group coaching approach to help, with that pain, or it could be more of a, hey, we've got a vision that we could do better. Yes.
Well, I'm just gonna make a comment that fear is pain too. Sometimes
That's
it's not necessarily hurting, but you have a leader that's looking into the future and saying, if I do this and I don't add some support, it's gonna really hurt.
Yeah.
So it's not always that people are leading. Sometimes you have a leader that has a vision to say they're gonna lead. If I don't do
Yeah,
something.
this would be painful, however.
Yeah. This is a better one.
Yeah, and I'll start, speaking of pain or fear, I'll start with this first bucket here that says culture change. We have been brought into organizations in many cases because as a result of the pandemic, they feel that their culture is not as intact as it used to be. Or they want to change their culture. They've got a whole new generation coming in who want different things, have different expectations, and they recognize a command and control approach just doesn't work. Or it could be that, there's some significant factors going on in business that just demand a whole different approach to leadership. So in some of those cases, we have worked with organizations that perhaps are rolling out new values to try to sort of instill a particular culture in the organization. And those have been great opportunities for leaders to come together in a group coaching format, sort of talk through the values, what they mean, how they demonstrate those values well. What do they look like in action? How do we as leaders bring these values back to our teams? And again, kind of to Mary's point, this is a group learning approach is a great way to get alignment around something big like that. You really need people to buy in. You need leaders to take something, bring it back to their teams. And the best way to do that is to get people talking about it. Sit around a room and say, well, what do you think this looks like if you're demonstrating integrity? Well, and here's what it looks like over here for me. And just letting them hear that values can be displayed a lot of different ways. It's not one way to demonstrate a particular company value. But collectively, if we're all doing that and doing it intentionally, we can really, we kind of turn the tide on the culture. Yeah.
So I love the idea of people talking in a positive way, but what about the poison pill person? This will never work. We tried this in 78.
It's interesting because it's
78 called, we want their solution back.
It's a great point. And, we definitely have skeptics that show up for group sessions. I would say that, our coaches are trained to kind of put that back on the group.
So
And going back to
there's a
Mary's
coach
point
in
about
each group.
there's a coach facilitating each group session. And to Mary's point about the social pressure, if everybody else is buying in and saying, this has worked for me, or this is what I think we need to be doing as leaders here. That pressure, it takes pressure off of Quantuvos, that's for sure. But it sort of puts it in the right place that they're holding each other accountable. Yeah,
another interesting kind of fear-based thing that we see too is when the workforce has an extraordinarily high number of new employees, call it in the last 12 to 18 months, right? So many of you may have been or are in organizations where people sort of keep saying went away, after the pandemic, and people started deciding what they were going to do, how they were going to do it, where they wanted to work. I mean, we have customers telling us 40% of our workforce is new in the last 18 months.
Yeah.
And they have, even if they don't want the culture to change, they're fearful if those people don't soak in something associated with the culture, other leaders, other learning opportunities, something, they're going to, just sort of coast their way into that company, and over 3 or 4 years, there's going to be this degradation of the culture, and they don't want it to happen. So it is preemptive. It's getting ahead of it, but concerned that if they don't act, that they're doing a disservice to all those new employees, but a disservice to the larger firm as well too.
We'll talk a little bit about the second one, the leadership skill building. We have a number of organizations where they either have a lot of new leaders because they hired a lot of people back after the pandemic that are unskilled, or they have multi-generations, and so they need to equip younger generations to lead. And in many cases, just kind of going back to the culture change, there's almost a retooling leaders as companies move in a different direction with their culture. We have a lot of our clients say they want to build a coaching culture. I don't know how many of you
Oh my
heard
God.
that. I mean, we hear it all the time. Coaching culture. What does that mean? Everybody wants coaching.
Am I
culture.
right? Do you hear that every day?
Yeah.
Or was it just my response to it that made you laugh?
It's just the twitch that you.
It was like you're living it.
The visceral reaction over here.
Having
Yeah,
a
we
lot of
hear that all the
visceral
time.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so what does that actually mean?
Right.
What do we want people doing differently? And then how do we get people to do it? And again, I think training has a place. I mean, I came up through the training and development world. I'm a big believer in training. But what we found is that a group coaching approach is a great way to reinforce leadership training programs. It's also a great way to, as Mary was talking about, giving leaders little kind of micro learning opportunities where they come together and they talk about, okay, what does it mean to give effective feedback? And how do we do that? And what has worked for you? And even having the coach from Quantuvos doing an exercise where they're actually coaching someone in that group in front of the others and helping them understand, here's what it looks like to give feedback effectively. So lots of just different ways to model it, but there's something about those leaders sort of together in that group, focusing on that particular skill, practicing it, applying it, coming back the next day or the next month, that really is powerful. And the thing we found is this sort of approach is a lower time commitment for leaders. They're like, hey, I can, I'm happy to, commit an hour and a half a month, or just from a cost standpoint tends to be much more cost effective. The third piece I'll mention up here, just in terms of change management. We have found that, again, kind of going to the company values piece, the group learning approach is a great way to get people aligned around change, get them talking about what change means, how they bring that change back to their teams. Mary, you were talking a little bit about unanticipated events and things that might come up in the organization that a group learning approach might be appropriate for.
Yeah. Well, it tags to the proactive versus reactive sorts of things. So we all, like to think we're being planful, and then 3 months into whatever the plan is, somebody says, oh, this happened, or now we have to respond to this market condition, this regulatory need, this change in the economics, whatever the case might be. So we get a fair amount of that as well too. It usually feels a little bit more like a burning platform. There's usually a sense of urgency that goes with that feels like there's something behind them versus something in front of them that they're heading toward. But I mean, both are motivating, for change to happen, either that real-time pain that you're experiencing or just trying to be strategic over the longer run.
And I think just getting leaders together to process through a change in a small group setting, being able to say, what does it really mean to you? How do we, what is it that we as leaders need to be doing differently? And so just that, again, that small group learning, that opportunity for leaders to have a safe place where they can process through things and say, I don't know, really what this means, or I don't know how to do this, or.
And you may be thinking on the execution side of this, like, how does this really happen? We do these things in a virtual environment. We also do them in a face-to-face sort of workshop environment. We've done both.
And combo.
Combos of those things, even down to individual work as follow-on for people that have been in the group assignments, group cohorts. So it's really depends on the situation, and you guys, that's what the business need is that we're trying to fix.
So let me just pause here. And Jen, I wanted to ask you if anybody online had questions or anything in the chat.
So we had a comment about how important being transparent. Transparency is essential for transformation. So we have people basically saying, "Preach, you're hitting it." So leaders out in the Zoom world, do you want to go ahead and share any questions that are out there, or come off mute and ask your questions so that we get a little bit of feedback from y'all?
I don't have a question, but I did just want to make a comment. I'm part of a leadership development program, and that started with like a 360 assessment, and then they are following up with group coaching. And these are general managers, and I've got to say that what you're saying right now resonates with me so much, because this is a group, and I'm in a very male-dominated industry, but they are really digging the connections, and they're getting so much out of the coaching session. So all I have to say, my question is, how loud can I say preach? Because this is hitting with me. So yeah, I'm loving it. Thanks.
What is your name?
Noelle Allen.
Noelle.
Yeah,
Thank you for that, because you brought up something that I think is really key to this working, and that is the relationships that they build.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And believe it or not, we have one organization in particular that they're sort of a tough as nails kind of company culture. Very male dominated. They don't get vulnerable that easily. And after they've been working together in a cohort over a period of time, it is amazing how they will start showing up and saying, really vulnerable things, and the relationships they're building are super powerful. And that's really the glue. I mean, that's really how you get change to happen, and how you get organizations to, instill a new culture, and how you get leaders really kind of leaning into how they recruit people. It's super powerful. Yeah.
So when you're establishing with a new company, is it that you'll kind of establish coaching that will go where the company needs it to, kind of whatever is, or is it usually a particular goal that coaching is supposed to march everybody towards?
It's typically, we typically start off with like, there's a specific need, like in one company, on the prior slide, I was talking a little bit about the leadership skills. We had one organization that had 5 generations in the workforce. And they said, we need to help our leaders work across generations. We need to help the older generations know how to work with the younger, and vice versa. And so there were some very specific things they wanted to address. And so we built that into a group coaching curriculum that then addressed that particular need. And then once that, we did that, and then it sort of expanded to more. So it's kind of different from company to company. Like one company, again, had rolled out some refreshed values, and they really wanted people to have the opportunity to think and reflect and talk about what they look like when they're demonstrated well. And so that was sort of a whole different thing.
Yeah. I mean, we do, for sure, we do individual coaching, what I just call coaching classic, right? Where the individual is not completely driving the agenda. Usually it's in the context of something the business needs for leadership development, but it's highly tailored to that one person, and it's all about that exchange and helping them self-discover. Do that all day long. This is the space that's really been exploding,
Yeah,
for us. Do our customers still want one-to-one coaching? Do the individual clients, the people receiving that coaching value it? Absolutely. But at a sort of at a business driver level, it's help us solve something faster and at scale.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And in many cases, we do both. So
Yeah.
we'll have people going through a group coaching series, but they're all getting individual coaching and it's interspersed. So when they might go to a group session and then shortly after they have an individual session, which is designed to reinforce what they learned in the group. Now, they may be working on their own development areas along with that. But, you know, if we just had a session on, you know, how to empower your people, the coach coaching them individually is gonna ask about that in the individual session. We're gonna talk a little bit about how does that get applied. So again, to Mary's point, yeah, individual coaching absolutely has a place and very powerful. When you combine it with group, that's kind of the best of all worlds. Greg, we just.
Well, that's exactly where I was gonna go, and I was gonna ask you to talk about the DEIV experience with group and individual coaching. Or
Yeah,
I'm
I
happy to
think-
do it if you want.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
So it's obviously, DEIV or DEI or however you want to call it, is a really challenging topic for so many organizations. Group coaching is a great way to get a group of people talking about some challenging issues, sharing with each other what their challenges are and how they're addressing it or any issues around that. But the incredible power comes after the first group coaching session, when individuals get together with their individual coach. Because that's when they open up about the challenges related to diversity that they will never talk about in a group session. Everybody has baggage, everybody has issues, everybody has something that triggers them in this topic. And now we bring our coaches together to share information in order to make sure that they're aware of what the topics are. So the coaches come back together and now the group coach comes back into the session and is armed with knowledge, knows what the challenges are that are really under the surface. And without putting anybody on the spot, can ask the right questions and raise the issues. And all of a sudden, this service level conversation goes way deep. And you get real impact, you get real change, because people are now talking about the things that they never would have talked about otherwise. And it's only through the combination of the group and then the individual. And you go back and forth on that for a while.
So if I can add something from the web, exactly what you're talking about, impact. So Tia had posted a comment about she's surprised at the fact that some senior managers are not aware of the impact of a group learning. So basically this could be part of a manager toolkit. And then her specific example to what you're kind of saying, being empathetic, supportive of an employee that wants to learn and develop, right? So it's like, sometimes I think as managers, we get so focused on the task at hand that it's kind of like we're tone deaf to what's happening around us, right?
Yeah.
When you saw the list of customers we had up there, one of the things that's really interesting is the things that we're working on are not technical skills.
Right.
They're not,
Yeah,
tactical kind. This is really all about how you interact with people.
Mhm.
Human skills. It's
That's
like
right.
a human.
I'm so tired. I'm tired of people calling them soft skills.
No,
There's
yeah,
nothing soft
they're
about
so,
it.
they're very
But-
hard.
No.
They're very difficult to do, and everybody needs to learn it. When you think about the younger generations and how digitized they are, there's an article we saw just this
But
week.
yet super aware.
Super aware, but there was an article just this week about how they're saying they don't know how to disagree
Oh,
with people because they don't know how to communicate. They
We
don't.
don't either. That's why we have classes called crucial conversations. Like,
Yeah.
everybody has to learn this stuff and it's an ongoing, ever growing journey.
But let me jump on that for a second, because if you do a class, you're introducing concepts. People learn what they're supposed to do. But if you don't provide them an opportunity to practice and reinforce those skills,
You're talking to a former actor and trainer, and this is like, this is what I tell my people all the time. If you wanna be aware with one session, you can master it with multiple.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have an opportunity, yes, you learn it, but then you have to have an opportunity to practice it. Be adjusted, given guidance, direction. And, yeah, it's the the practice. is-
But it's also the culture in which this is taking place, because I've consulted a lot of companies, they said, well, our younger generations don't know how to disagree or voice their opinion. Challenge is they want them to voice their opinions, they would have, in ways that would have been voiced them 20, 30 years ago. Is
Yeah.
that you have to meet them on their level, you have to understand how they're communicating, they have to understand how you're communicating. And the expectations is, because I coach and mentor a lot of younger individuals, including my sons, and the way they speak to their employers, ways I wouldn't have ever.
Yeah.
But when I take a step back, is okay, they're letting them know how they feel and what their expectations. So they're kind of setting the table for the conversations, and it comes out as toxicity because those in leadership positions sometimes go, well, I'm in charge, so I control the tone. I control this conversation.
Mhm.
And so it's, again, it's not soft skill, it's very difficult. So it's having to rethink the whole culture of the conversation in which the conversation.
Well,
takes
it's a
place.
whole collective national culture.
So I have a suggestion for you, Greg, from the web. Noel and several others we've got a little bit of a groundswell here. We're calling them power skills.
Power skills. I love
You like that?
I like
You guys
that.
can totally take it.
Power,
Power skills.
that is cool.
Who's gonna put the little R circle next to it? Is that Noel?
He who does it, Noel said it.
First.
Noel likes to say it, but you know what? I'm just saying.
Well, whoever it is, cup of coffee coming your way.
There you go, Noel.
I love coffee.
Starbucks gift card.
You do a little,
No,
you do a
you
little
away.
write-up every week, and hidden in it often is a, hey, if you fill this out, you get a Starbucks gift card.
Yeah.
And
It's amazing what that'll do.
it's amazing.
Okay,
All right,
thank
we're
you for
gonna,
being
we can,
here.
and I know we're just about out of time on this.
We're coming up on
Okay,
it, but
all right, we'll wrap up. Thank you for coming.
thank you.
So just a couple of things. Again, I feel like we are absolutely preaching to the choir, but the things that we found that make group learning work is you have to have senior leadership support. The first question managers ask when they get into group coaching is, or they say, our managers need this. And so, so again, having the support from the top and the best way to do it obviously is starting at the top and taking it. Have to create a safe environment for people to contribute. We spend a lot of time talking about confidentiality and agreements within cohorts. And again, you know, making sure what we're talking about is extremely relevant to them. You know, getting to know the organization, the examples, the situations these leaders are in, and using those in the conversation, I think is what really helps that be powerful. And then giving them an opportunity to immediately apply it. And the other thing I'll say is, you know, we never look at group learning or coaching as just sort of this, we're coming in and doing this thing that's sort of over here. We think aligning with what a learning and development department is already doing, understanding their goals, learning how coaching can be used to reinforce what that organization is doing from a learning standpoint is very, very important. So we never look at it as, okay, coaching's one solution and we're competing with all these other solutions. No, they have to work together. And we think that
We tend to look too for artifacts, you know,
Yeah.
that represent those things across the organization. So if the CEO recently made a speech that came anywhere close to any of this, it's like, well, can we read what that is? Or
Yeah.
your recognition programs, what do they?
Mission statement,
what do they
vision
say?
statement.
Yeah, I mean, so to look for these other things so people don't get mixed signals.
Yeah, and it stays really relevant.
A really good question to ask yourself if you're, because psychological safety is a really big buzzword, right? Is, would you create psychological safety in your teams? Do you make it safe for, so a really good question to ask your people is, do I make it safe for you to tell me I don't know? To any issue. Because if you don't make it safe for them to say, I don't know, the speed of business today, you're not gonna know. And so a really good way to test that if you're a leader or even if you're a peer on a team is to ask, do I make it safe for you to say, I don't know? And then you have to make sure, and it's okay to tell me that I don't. Because that's the only way I'm gonna create
to
that.
that, Jen, do you make it okay for me to tell you when I failed? Or when I
Right.
made a mistake? Or-
When I don't know, when's the last time I've said I don't know?
Right.
Yeah.
So just something to kind of, a tool for your toolbox.
Mary, I'll let you wrap up with this.
I think this group gets it, you know, the second, the second bullet up there, Margaret and I were putting these few slides together. I think that's the thing that we see our customers asking us to do is help us figure out how to take whatever the strategic component is, whatever the issue that they're dealing with. How do we take that and move to action on this in a way, again, at scale, in a very aligned way.
And quickly, but in sort of bite-sized
Uh-huh.
chunks over time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for allowing us
So
to
thank
speak.
you all.
Oh my gosh, do you want to share your contact information on the next slide?
Oh, it's the next
Yeah,
slide.
sure, for sure.
That part's
Great.
easy.
Contact us.
Absolutely.
Can we do this again? I
Yeah.
learned so much from this conversation.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have the benefit and the honor of being able to monitor our chat, and we have got a couple people from our board that weren't able to be here, and we're chatting about, a power skills like series and right. Well, we like to highlight our talent in our chapter, that. So yeah, I think that there's an appetite for that, and maybe even in a bite-sized workshop, right?
And a reminder, next week is your conference.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
We're there.
Yeah. Absolutely, you are.
So if you don't get enough swag tonight, there's more.
Yeah, there is swag over here. Sorry for you guys online, but Greg might give you a Starbucks gift card if you reach out to him.
Maybe, maybe.
Maybe.
Please take something with you on. But thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I've got a couple announcements here on the slide and I'm sharing them in the room as well. Let me go back to the announcements. We have just secured Pont City Rooftop for our year-end celebration. Our sponsors will be included in that as well. So we really hope that you can join us for that. That's going to be a great evening of Employee Learning Week celebration, end of year celebration, just really great networking at a really great place in a very festive environment. So we're really excited about that. That's on December 12th. So circle that on your calendar. Please join us. Details on that are coming very soon. I love Ponce in the holiday season, and I think it's going to be electric. It'll be super fun.
Yeah.
And speaking of Employee Learning Week, we're going to have a lunch and learn on November 1st to start to get people ready for that. There's some recognition that we do for Employee Learning Week, and we want to make sure that everybody has a chance to learn a little bit more about that. Jeffrey, do you want to talk about ACE? Because the man with the plan and this amazing leader at the back of the room who's in charge of ACE, we could not be more fortunate to have him in
I
our.
would love to have everyone join us at ACE next week, October 4th, Wednesday, at the Marriott, Atlanta Marriott Northeast, which is right here in Citrus Center Park. Excellent speakers. We even have a couple in the room. So Kevin will be doing storytelling.
There's a hot topic.
Invigorate and excite us all. So please join us. Right now we're running a special, so 10% off.
10% off.
Register.
Yeah, absolutely.
What time is it? The event? Is
It
in the evening
starts,
or late?
breakfast is at 8, we're
All
gonna
day.
start at 9.
Mary, you're coming back from Los Angeles. which is
Yeah,
why you're
that's
not
fine.
there.
That's why I was thinking it's probably not gonna.
Yeah.
So yours is a full daytime.
It's a full day.
Full day.
Yeah. It's a full day. Jam-packed. The agenda is through that scan on that QR code. So if you're online or if you are here and you want to see what the agenda looks like, definitely encourage you guys to join us. It'll be a great day, great networking, great day of connection. So that's coming up. I can't believe it's next week. We've been talking about it for a minute. It's going to be great though. You've done a phenomenal job. So great work. And then last, I just wanted to say, these are our 2023 annual chapter sponsors. So these folks sponsor our chapter. They help us do the work that we do. And I just want to take a moment to thank everybody for that. But most importantly, thank you to Margaret and Mary for being here. This was a very invigorating conversation. I'm excited to continue the conversation. So thank you for being here. Absolutely. Absolutely. Does anybody have any other questions or anything else before we adjourn? This is not one of those formal meetings, but I just thought I would put a pin in it. So if people need to go, they can.
I second, no.
You second? Motion. We do the rules in our board meetings, but we don't do it. Thank you for being here, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Please take if there's people waiting at home, please take some dinner for them. So
Thanks, guys. This was great.
thank you so much. Thank you for being on the web. Noelle, Bianca, Atia, Sean, I see you. Thank you for being here.
Did you hear cooking?
Bye. Did I cook?